In a world where carbs are your enemy, you need one man to help you fight your battles. That man is Jimmy.
Combating nutrition disinformation and general bull. It's Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com.
Welcome to the Nutritional Pearls Podcast, featuring nutritional therapy practitioner Christine Moore and hosted by veteran health podcaster Jimmy Moore. Listen in as they feature nuggets of nutritional knowledge and provide practical application of what to do with this newfound dietary wisdom in your pursuit of optimal health. Visit our website, nutritionalpearlspodcast.com, to explore more nutritional pearls that could change your life. And now it's time to blow you away with today's featured nutritional pearl. Here's Jimmy and Christine.
What's up, you guys? Welcome back to another Instagram Live. And we're here with another episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. What'd you forget?
Oh, I just had to go in and get some.
Well, go get something.
Okay.
That's what I was waiting you for.
Oh, okay.
I started the show, and Christine's like, wait, I missed something. I'm like, well, go get it. So, JimmyRants.com is the website. Here's how the show works. We start off on Instagram. So if you're not following me already on Instagram, go follow me on Instagram at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, you can engage live in the content, just like all these awesome people are doing right now. See, Christine, you're back. See,
Yeah, just had to get something to drink.
I have a long intro, so that's why when I shoved you and I was like, go away. So thank you guys for being here live. If you missed the live, you can watch the replay up to 24 hours over on Instagram. But after 24 hours, it does disappear. We throw all the past episodes up on YouTube. Type in Jimmy Words as a keyword search. You will find the show on YouTube. Finally, we have the best of the... What?
Jimmy Words?
Jimmy Rants as a keyword search.
You said Jimmy Words.
It's going to be one of those days, you guys.
Love you, mean it. Gotta keep them straight.
Jimmy Rants keyword search over on YouTube. So type in Jimmy Rants. Or if you type in Jimmy Words, you might find me over on YouTube. Finally, we have the best of the best moments of this here show in podcast form. It's the Jimmy Words podcast over on... Jimmy Rants podcast over on... I can't do this show today. She's got me thrown off my game, you guys. Over on Apple Podcasts as well as Stitcher. I do know this one. JimmyWords.com. I mean, JimmyRants.com is the website. And in case you haven't noticed, today's Jimmy Rants is the weekly crossover episode of Jimmy Rants with the Nutritional Pearls podcast, and that only means one thing. We get the lovely, the beautiful, the correcting my grammar in English, Christine Moore. What's up, Chris?
Not much, just
Keeping me straight?
Listening to you speak, even that you speak for a living. So
I speak gooder. I speak gooder than most.
It's funny.
So Christine is a nutritional therapy practitioner. And so through that, we try to come on here on at least once a week on Jimmy Rants to do an episode featuring her mad skills at NTPing. I said you were NTPing.
You just made that a verb.
Yes, I know.
A verb.
NTPing. Yes. To NTP means to?
Nutritional therapy practitioner.
No, I didn't say what does it mean. But to NTP.
So...
As a verb?
To help people in their nutritional
goals
reach their goals, yeah.
Okay. So, we've jibber-jabbered enough.
Are you going to jibber-jabber about jibber-jabber?
Let's jibber-jabber about jibber-jabber if you're a Big Bang Theory fan. No, today we are going to talk about this topic. What the bleep happened to the food supply and how do we fix it? Because, Christine, whether people realize it or not, food has not always been the way it is now.
No.
Where the food supply, we have all of this kind of crap that is on store shelves
Yep.
sold as food. And it's anything but food. I like to refer to a lot of these kinds of foods in quotation marks as food-like disease agents, because that's pretty much what they do.
Or crappy
So,
garbage.
and Anna says Monsanto happened. So
Yeah, basically.
that's a big one.
We're
but
getting there.
but yeah. So why don't you talk about why we're talking about this here today?
So yeah, the food. These companies are just so good at formulating food to make it hyper palatable.
Hyper palatable, meaning it tastes really good on the tongue.
Yeah, so it's a combination of fat, salt, and sweet. And the brain has a region called the hedonic region where where endorphins are produced and the endocannabinoids are produced. One you may be familiar with is dopamine. And so when you have these foods, it triggers this dopamine
I want that
to be released, and dopamine doesn't signal satiation or even that you like the food, but it signals the desire to go get more of it.
Get it.
And so this is when you were a hunter-gatherer, the dopamine is what kept them going for, their next food feast.
Right.
So these companies are really good about changing these foods, and we got here through a series of events. So we started out as hunter-gatherers, where we hunted and gathered our food. And
Thus hunter-gatherer.
Yeah, and we would go long periods of time, probably in between each kill or each gathering. And so we got to a point where about 10 to 12,000 years ago, we started gathering and growing our food and storing it. And so this started changing the food, where
Industrialized food.
Yeah, it kind of, nutrients started being less and less in foods because crops possibly weren't rotated or the soil was being overused. So that happened 10 to 12,000 years ago. And then we had in the 1600s the introduction of sugar and this was mainly mainly centralized in the wealthy or the people that had a lot of money. They could afford this because sugar was expensive at the time.
Which is why we got the term fat cat. Of obesity, actually, at that time was considered a sign of affluence, that you only got obese because you ate the sugar, because you could afford to have it. So if you had a belly, the belly came from eating the sugar, and that's what gave you that's what made you a fat cat. So it's kind of funny now that sugar is so ubiquitous, and we're all fat cats, just without the bunny.
Yep, so the wealthy began to replace the proteins and the fat with these sugars. So that was in the 1600s. Then the 1800s, you had the Industrial Revolution.
Yep.
Had to think
Late
of that.
1800s.
And this is where people began to go work in factories. They had less time to prepare their meals, less time for soaking and sprouting and that sort of thing that these traditional cultures used to do. Then you had in the 1900s these big food companies like Kellogg's and what was the other one that we talked about?
Nestle.
Nestle, yes. These companies came along and they started manufacturing these foods.
Did you guys know cornflakes was only started as a direct result of they had all this overabundance of stuff they were just throwing away? And so they thought, okay, what can we do to repurpose this that maybe we could sell it? And that's how it became a part of our food supply. There's so much in our food supply now that if you knew the origin of why it's there, Crisco also came around about that same time. If you knew why it was in the food supply now, it would shock you.
Yeah, yep. And then we get to World War II to present, and this is where thousands and thousands of chemicals have been introduced into the food population. And what was fascinating to me to learn is that these materials that were used to make bombs for the war all of a sudden had no purpose, and so they were looking for purposes to use them. So they used them in pesticides and herbicides and all this sort of stuff, which gets into our food supply.
So Fruit Loops are literally the bomb.
Yeah. Yeah. That was
Well,
good.
what's fascinating about all of these additives that they put into the foods now, this is a uniquely American thing. I was telling Christine about this. When you go to Europe or some other country around the world, a lot of these additives and flavorings and all kinds of things, they're banned in Europe. They just don't put it in the food supply like we do here.
Yeah, I love seeing the Facebook posts that show the labels from Europe and then from here. I mean,
we talked about the ketchup one earlier. In America, if you buy traditional ketchup, it's going to have high fructose corn syrup as the primary sweetener.
Yeah.
You go over to Europe, it's sugar, no better, from a nutrient standpoint, but it's fascinating. They don't allow even things like high fructose corn syrup in their products.
No. And this is about the time, too, that the hydrogenated oils
trans fats
came to be to kind of help foods become shelf stable.
Yes.
And then even after the chemical revolution, it is the digital revolution. This is something that you don't stop to think about, but social media, the internet has its goods and bads, and the good is that you have access to a bunch of information that you didn't used to be able to have, and that goes for nutrition as well. So you can learn so much about nutrition from the internet. Sometimes it can be kind of sensory overload. You don't know who to believe.
There's a lot of bad information on the internet.
There's a lot of bad
except for Jimmy Rant's Nutritional Pearls podcast.
But the digital age has its downsides too, because we spend more time on our devices rather than getting outside and getting in nature. Yeah, exactly. So the digital age has just changed everything about our lives, and to the detriment of digesting food properly. We're on our devices while eating a lot of times.
Which puts you in a more sympathetic state rather than parasympathetic.
Yep.
Stress versus non-stressed, right?
I never really stopped to think about that as being one of the milestones of how we came to the foods that we have today.
So let's stop and think about it.
Okay, we thought about it.
We thought about it, okay.
But I want you to hear, when I mentioned the hyper palatability, taste is important. You want to enjoy your food. It's just the way that these companies mix the salt, the fat, and the sugar to make you want to crave more. So we're meant to taste our food. We're meant to enjoy it. So there are several different taste sensations that we have. We have sweet, we have salty, we have astringent, we have pungent, we have umami, we have bitter, and all of these have different functions in the body.
Positive functions.
Yeah. So I think it
from real whole foods.
From real whole foods. So you mentioned that you craved
sugar.
Sweets,
yeah.
Sugar growing up, and you had a rough childhood.
Right. So what's one of the properties of sugar?
One of the properties of sweet is a calming effect. And so I think people that crave, not only is it a blood sugar issue for some people, I think some people are more drawn to the sweet because it is calming. So that's...
Well, see, now I'm naturally sweet.
Well, yes, you are.
So I get all of the great calming effects of being so naturally sweet. You can laugh at that later.
Yes. Yeah. I won't want to touch
But yours was what?
Mine is salty.
Yes.
And I think part of that is because I have adrenal issues. And if you have adrenal gland issues, then you crave the salt.
And you do.
I do.
And you do.
I just found it fascinating that when I made that connection, oh, sweet is
Ding,
a
ding,
calming
ding, ding,
effect.
ding, ding.
And so you hear this term comfort foods.
Yes.
And most of these comfort foods, what are they? High in carbohydrate. And so what do carbohydrates do in the body, whether it's sugar or starch? It turns to sugar in the body.
Well, and here's the thing. So maybe you still have sugar cravings. We talked to a friend earlier today, and she's still battling the sugar cravings.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of that desire for the sweet is actually a desire for a calming effect, because there's stuff going on in her life right now that is less than calming. So.
Yes, that's very well possible. So we're meant to taste and enjoy our food. We just need to stay away from the packaged foods. I mean, these hormones are injected to a lot of animals, and these herbicides, pesticides, insecticides are used, and that gets into our food. That's why there are things that we can do that we can make sure that we are getting good quality foods.
Yeah, so we'll get to that here in a minute. So if you're just joining us, we are doing our weekly Jimmy Rants Nutritional Pearls podcast crossover episode. Nutritional Pearls podcast airs on Mondays, so definitely go check it out, llvlc.com. But we've been talking about what in the world has happened, as I wrote it in the comment down there, what the bleep has happened to the food supply. Because everybody kind of eats what's in the grocery store, and most of that stuff has a lot of this hyper palatable foods, which have that mixture of sugar, salt, and fat. And I would even add into sugar, salt, and fat is all these additives and preservatives and colorings. And don't get me started on what natural flavors mean, which I've talked about before.
That red dye is nasty stuff.
There's all kind of really nasty stuff in the food supply. And so in light of all of that being the reality of where we are in our food system, and this is a uniquely American thing. Yes, there's crap overseas as well, but a lot of that is when they embrace kind of westernized culture. When they eat the traditional foods of their culture, most of those are real whole foods, not hyper palatable, and so they're not getting these same results.
Well, see, here's another thing. This is another reason why we have gotten to the point that we're at. Not everybody has access to
good quality food.
Good quality foods.
Right.
So that's another...
The food deserts you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because of that, we often lament, okay, so we got all this crap around us. How do you avoid it? And so what we're going to talk about now is how do we fix it? And you were about to go into that, but I wanted to put a finer point on what happened first.
Yeah, that's okay. So there are things you can do. You can support your local farmers.
Yes.
You know, you can talk to them, go to these farmers markets and talk to them about how they raise their vegetables, how they raise or grow their vegetables, how they raise their meats, their animals. You can, especially if you're in a food desert area, if you have the room, and it doesn't take a lot of room, you can grow your own stuff. I mean, this winter, Jimmy got me an arrow garden, a Miracle-Gro arrow garden, and we started seedlings on our kitchen counter, and we grew herbs. We grew some lettuce. We've got cherry tomatoes in there, and once they were ready, we put them into our greenhouse. I know not everybody has a greenhouse, but what I'm saying is all it takes is just a kitchen countertop where you can grow, even if it's just herbs. You know, you can do that. You can, if you have the space, you can have backyard chickens. They're a lot of fun. You know how they're being raised, and the eggs are just incredible. So those are just a few things that you can do.
Yeah, and I think most of all is just getting out of the system, because people are like, well, it's just going to continue on. I guarantee you, if we stop buying the crap and we start doing all the things that Christine just named off, it's going to put a hurting
Money
for certain.
speaks,
Yeah, I mean, seriously, speak with your dollars. Vote with your dollars. And the best way to get that system to break, or at least to get altered, because we're already seeing a lot of these companies like Kraft Foods now buying out Primal Nutrition, Primal Kitchen, because their products are being rejected.
Yeah,
and I think that's
are hurting.
And I think that's a very good sign that good things are happening on this front that we're talking about here today.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I mean, it's kind of encouraging. You know, you don't want to see people's jobs being lost and that sort of thing. But I mean, it is encouraging to see that we're finally making a difference, and we just need to keep spreading the word and doing all we can do to educate people about the importance of real whole foods.
Well, and you know, we often talk about we need to get back to the hunter-gatherer days and how we ate then. Actually, all we need to get back to is great-grandma.
Yeah.
Because great-grandma, for most people, was somewhere around the early 1900s. And in the early 1900s, before all of this industrialized food processing came along, you know, they had bacon and eggs for breakfast. And they milked their own cow, so they had fresh, raw milk, real whole foods. They churned their own butter. Took them hours, but they churned their own butter. Probably the best tasting butter you ever had. They grew their own vegetables in a vegetable garden. All of these things that we used to do, when industrialized food came along, people abdicated their responsibility to take care of their families. And I think that this is something that everybody needs to take a vested interest in. And if you're not taking a personal vested interest in where your food comes from and taking care of business on that front, then you have no excuse as to why you get sick and unhealthy at all.
I mean, it's just like abdicating your responsibility of your health to your doctor. Now,
Correct.
I have a lot of respect for doctors. The amount of training that they have to go through is incredible. I don't want them talking to me about nutrition because they really didn't get any training on that, very little training. I do want them, like my shoulder surgery, I want them to be able to be available to fix my shoulder. But when it comes to nutrition, you got to take responsibility and take that into your own hands.
Yeah. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. Welcome in, welcome in. Thanks for being here for this Jimmy Rants Nutritional Pearls podcast crossover. Grandma Does Keto likes your hair. She said it looks gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, look at the gorgeous hair.
See all the grays up there?
Isn't
it's
it
about
pretty?
time for me to get it done again.
See, my little old lady just can't help but see herself in that way. But you are beautiful, my dear.
Thank you.
Bonnie Lene says hello.
Hey, Bonnie.
So does Ashton.
Hey, Ashton.
Monsanto happened, said Anna.
Yep.
Arg maltodextrin, says Brett, talking about some of the things that they add to the foods.
Yeah,
we could be just on that one all day, Brett.
Yeah, you think that what trips me up is these sugar substitutes, like
have sugar in them.
Stevia. They have sugar in them
With
because it's a
maltodextrin.
bulking agent. I mean, hello, you're defeating the purpose of
Yes.
Don't get me started.
Yes. It's almost like a neighbor doesn't know we're recording a podcast right now, and does he not know we're recording a podcast and doing his drill saw? The excitotoxins, aka flavor enhancer, says Grandma Does Keto.
Yeah, I mean, MSG, all these things have been added to food. I mean, caffeine is another thing. It's just we've become addicted to all these things.
Might as well face it, we're addicted to all these things.
Yep.
Keto Friendly 67. It is so hard to talk over that noise. Can you guys hear that in the background? It's undeniable. Sorry. Is that what you said? Sorry.
No, you did.
It's a jig. Sorry. Keto Friendly 67. The companies will change if we get them, everyone in the country to watch Jimmy Rants. Well, hey, I like that idea. And listen to the Nutritional Pearls podcast. Hello, Paleo Pharmacist. Thanks for being here. Bonnie says, I crave the crunch of chips with salt. Even my darkest chocolate has to have some kind of nuts in it, or I won't eat it. I thought my body was telling me I needed the nutrients, but I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends on your situation. But yeah, a lot of times that combination is there's a response happening in the brain that it's like a reward center. It's pleasure, that sort of thing. So it could be a combination of several things.
Yeah. Alberto says raw meats have a flat flavor, not stimulating any cravings, nor making food your number one priority. You eat because you feel a need to eat, nothing more. Not hangry, not mega excited by food. We talked about this earlier, that bacon, some people would say, is extraordinarily palatable, but it wouldn't be considered hyper palatable because you can only eat just so much bacon and you do get full.
There's a difference, I think, in the way the brain responds to these foods. Like I said, we're meant to enjoy our food. I mean, that's why God created varieties of fruits, vegetables, meats. I mean, we're meant to enjoy it. So there's one called umami. It's been the most recent one added to the taste palette about 100 years ago, and it just simply means a pleasurable, savory taste. And so,
like bacon.
Yeah, like bacon. And so,
but that has a little sweet in it for some of them too.
It depends on if they add the maple.
Yeah.
But umami is basically, it's an indicator of umami,
mami, bobami, banana, nana, fofami.
It's just an indicator of a protein, or specifically the amino acid glutamate. So,
like monosodium glutamate.
It's a little bit different because this one's
MSG.
This one's an amino acid,
and it's naturally occurring.
Glutamate is used in conjunction with B6 to make GABA, I think.
Which is the brain neurotransmitter stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're meant to enjoy our food. We're not. I don't think we're just solely meant to eat just to
for fuel.
For fuel, I think we do a disservice if we're saying that. I mean, we're meant to enjoy our food.
But what I heard you saying earlier with the hyper palatable, you get this whole hedonic response.
Yes.
And if you're a long time listener to Keto Talk, my Thursday podcast that I do, you may remember my old co-host was Dr. Adam Nally. And he always described that hedonic response of when the brain goes, oh, that's good.
That's a pretty good impersonation.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
So you brought up something when we were talking about this. What was his name? Stephan Guyenet.
This is his whole theory on obesity and disease is it's the hyperpalatability of foods that are making people fat and unhealthy in their health markers, not some kind of hormonal response when it comes to, say, insulin, for example.
I think it's a combination of both.
How can it not be a combo of both?
Exactly.
Yeah. So, in fact, I read the other day that Stephan Guyenet, who is a researcher into this particular theory of hyperpalatability, we got some weird noises coming from our neighbors today, and Gary Taubes are going to be on the Joe Rogan podcast coming up soon to debate the insulin hypothesis versus this whole hyperpalatability hypothesis. So stay tuned. Darla says, I'm making kale chips now. There's no hyperpalatability there, but they sure do taste good, don't they?
When they're cooked in bacon grease with some sea salt on them. Oh.
Okay, we're hungry. Alberto said, I think food coloring additives are banned in Europe. Yeah, there's a lot that's banned in Europe.
Yep.
Bonnie says, I've often thought farmers will not disclose that they use pesticides. I just don't know who to trust. That's a good start, and still ask around who is organic. Well, it's not just who is organic.
Yeah.
There's some that can't even afford to pay for that stupid certification of USDA certified organic. That I know a lot of them do better than organic practices. So don't just think just because it has organic on it that means anything.
Well, these companies are so good. They know what the trigger terms are. They know what the buzzwords are, and they'll slap some organic on it. And in this day and age, that really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Sad to say.
Pig Palooza says the noise across the street. Maybe he's building you a soundproof booth. I do actually have a recording studio, over yonder, but that would not look good on camera.
Not good lighting in there.
Yeah.
And plus the weather is so nice today. We want.
Oh yeah, it's like 70 something degrees out here today.
Yeah.
Darla says, "Ooh, bacon grease for the kale chips."
Yes. Oh, it's worth it. Yes.
So guys, the bottom line in this Jimmy Rants Nutritional Pearls podcast crossover episode, what the bleep has happened to the food supply, and hopefully by now you got a little bit of historical context And how do we fix it? We don't engage in that anymore. I think if we stop buying industrialized food and we start embracing real whole foods in our own yard. Over there, we've got a garden that will be growing real soon.
Yep.
We got backyard gardens as well. We've got a greenhouse. We've got backyard chickens. I know some other people have other small animals. They have goats and pigs and all kinds of things. If you can do that, please do that. If you can't, then go support the ones who can. So go to farmers markets, go to a local farm. You will find somebody that can help you live your real whole food based lifestyle, so we get out of this system that messed up our food supply to begin with.
Yep. Well said.
Well, thank you, Miss Christina Weiner, for joining us on today's Jimmy Rants.
Thank you.
We
for
missed
having
doing
me.
this last week because we were gone traveling, but
Yep.
it was good to be back.
Yep.
So tell them how they can find you.
So I have a website, rebootingyournutrition.com. I am not currently seeing any new clients. My client load is full. So, but if you do have like a specific question about anything that we've talked about,
You do answer on social media.
I do answer on social media.
Which
so
you are on social media.
I'm on Facebook, Rebooting Your Nutrition, and then Twitter is, I think, Keto NTP.
Keto NTP on Twitter.
And then Instagram is also Rebooting Your Nutrition.
Yes, so go check her out. And guys, that's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. As always, you can engage live in the content simply by going over to Instagram. So go follow me there at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. I'm not going to make it through this podcast.
You're doing fine, baby.
The nail gun is killing my nerves. Okay. You can engage live, just like all of these people did here today. See, they're going to stick around to the very end to see what happens next.
All right.
After 24 hours, or up to 24 hours, you can watch it on replay on Instagram. My nerves are just shot right now with the noise in the background.
It's okay.
It's
We're
so
going to go
beautiful.
inside soon.
You know where we should have done this was in the backyard, in the rocking chairs back there, like a bunch of old people. So it
Next
wouldn't have
time.
been near as loud.
It's supposed
so.
to be nice this week. Maybe we
Nice-ish.
can do. Yeah, maybe we can do another one.
And we'll get little chicken noises in the background. That'd be even better ambiance
Yeah.
than whatever that nail gun sound is. So
Yeah, I love our little chickens' voices.
after 24 hours, it does disappear, you guys. So hop on over to YouTube, type in a keyword Jimmy Rants,
There you go.
and you will find the show. Finally, the best of the best moments of this here show.
He's kind of smart.
Finally, the best of the best moments of this here show in podcast form. She's messing me up, you guys. See, I'm usually a professional on Jimmy Rants, but when my wife is next to me, I can't help but act a bigger goofball than normal.
If you want to see some really entertaining stuff, go watch our YouTube videos from like 10 years ago.
Yes. Welcome back to Living La Vida Low Carb on YouTube. My name is Jimmy Moore.
And I'm Christine
And
Moore.
I'm Christine Moore. And today we're going to talk about gluconeogenesis,
Gluconeogenesis.
otherwise known as gluconeogenesis. I bet you can't say that 3 times real fast.
Probably not. I might say something that might get me into trouble.
But then in that video you said, but you can,
But you
can't, but you can't.
But you
And I
can't.
went, gluconeogenesis, gluconeogenesis,
Yeah, that's what it was.
gluconeogenesis.
That's right.
Go look it up, you guys. You'll see what we're talking about.
If you want to laugh, just go watch those old videos.
Where was I? Oh, yes. Jimmy Rants Podcast on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. JimmyRants.com is the website.
You sure it's not Jimmy Words?
JimmyWords.com is my alter ego. Are we going to actually hang up the call, or are we going to just stay here and entertain the folks till we run out of time?
We can keep going if you want.
I know you can say so until next time. Oh, I've choked her up.
You did.
So until next time, we'll see you then.
So until next time, we'll see you then.
Okay, that was lame. So until next time, we'll see you then.